Back at you, part two. We're gonna make this one quick. I want to show you some pictures of a man named by the name of John Edwards Bruce. Are you able to see this, brother? Do I need to go up a little higher here? This is John Edwards Bruce, also known as Bruce Grit. His pen name was Bruce Grit. This brother back in the 1900s wrote over 100 books. He wrote a lot of articles in newspapers across the nation. He was pretty much an elder of associate of Marcus Garvey. He is the one who got Garvey into masonry. And I'm going to read you an article about Bruce Grit. And it is in a newspaper called, I'm not going to read the whole article. It's just a reference. Sorry about that, people. But it is from the Herald Statement, Yonkers, New York. This is Sunday, August 1st. I'm going to give you the date real quick. 1924, where it says the Duke of Uganda once lived here. And it says funeral services of Negro journalist and politician attended by 5,000. And a body brought here for burial. So this is Bruce Grit, who resided in this city from the 1900s to the date currently, and it goes into his funeral services there in the city. So Garvey's associate was calling himself the Duke of Uganda, Bruce Grit. He wasn't from Uganda, but he had a title calling himself the Duke of Uganda. Now, we also went into in the Garvey series about Princess Laura Kofi, who came to the Americas to speak against the Garvey movement, and they killed her as she was giving a speech. I handled that in the Garvey videos. In another article, Revisionist History, this is how they do it. They try to make it look like that Princess Laura Kofi was a Garveyite. In another article, I read you that article where they giving you revisionist history. That's how they do. She was never Garveyite. She went against Garvey. 7 other African kings came here from the Gold Coast to speak out against Garvey as well. And brother mentioned Eason in the other video. He was also assassinated when he was going to speak against Garvey in a court case. He was assassinated on his way by Garveyites. They did arrest him. Someone else that was speaking out against Garveyite movements that was killed, assassinated. And of course, we have more things. So we talk about Garvey, what was happening in the 1920s earlier. To be clear, changing people or get them to accept the titles of Negro, Black, Colored is basically altering the nationality of a group of people to where they're no longer protected by what's called natural law, if I'm using the word wrong, but actual law, not statute, ordinances, codes, but real law, land, air, water, and sun, where we get laws from, not statute, ordinance, in codes. That's different. So by changing their nationality, now they're left open for others to come in and claim land. We got into land earlier and how nationality plays in the land. So this is kind of where we're going with Garvey. He basically, was he an agent of a foreign power? We know he went to school in London, and he never went to Africa. Then after, of course, he got deported to Jamaica. He went back to London. And of course, there's other information on his parents as well. I mentioned that in the other videos. On Bruce Grit, Bruce also worked with Arthur Schomburg. Schomburg had another name. He was connected to the Rothschilds family. And Marcus Garvey, his relationship with Schomburg, they said Schomburg was out of Puerto Rico, I believe, who was nearly 20 years his junior, was once the surrogate father from which he promoted Schomburg's bibliomania and his interest in Freemasonry. So I mentioned Masonry to you earlier as well. And then I want to mention about a fictitious account that, oh, here it is. Bruce Grit, once again, John Edwards Bruce. Very important article. I want you to pay attention. Bruce wrote a fictional account of a slave trade in 1916 entitled The Awakening of Hezekiah Jones, a story dealing with the problems affecting the political rewards due to the Negro. Can I repeat that again? Bruce wrote a fictional account of a slave trade in 1916. That's when he wrote it in 1916. But it was referencing something that was happened during so-called slavery. So Bruce Grit wrote over 100 books. He wrote articles for about 9 different newspapers. Do you see where this is going? on the story of slavery, which we're going to have to get into that. So that's just something on Garvey. Once again, Negro, Black, and Colored, get your estates, come in. Some foreigners can come in and get it. 1900 wars, treaties. The 1900s was crazy. We ain't even got a W.B. Du Bois yet. Okay, it's foreign acts also. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris to continue on Garvey, and then feel free to turn it over to Suraj whenever you're ready, brother.
So, has anybody ever wondered why, like, the Pan-Africanist movement is called the Pan-African movement?
Break it down.
Like, what is the word pan? Does anybody know? What does that mean? What does that mean? Pan. What's it associated with?
It's associated with an evil deity.
So if anybody knows anything about Greek mythology, the Greek deity of Pan was a deity of the woods and the forest, and he was a trickster deity. He also was highly sexualized, mated with women, children, sometimes males. So my question to you is, why would they call a movement that's supposedly benevolent, but the prefix of it is pan? Does that does that make any sense to anybody?
You an etymology word.
So yeah, I'm gonna leave that up to you guys. But that's just some of the things that I found interesting, and that I noticed when doing the research on this. A couple of other things that I found was that Garvey was in contact with the Ku Klux Klan. He even wrote a letter to them. And this is a loosely translated. Well, I'm paraphrasing. In the quote that he wrote, he said, when writing to the Grand Wizard of the KKK, he said he regarded the Anglo-Saxon clubs and white societies as better friends than any other group to him. Now, Garvey was getting funding from the Klan and some of these white secret society members to help fund his Back to Africa movement. And I'm gonna let you take over from there.
Yeah, let me state real quick. I do have an article. I probably should have pulled it up about the Klan in the 1900s having over. It stated between 15,000 and 20,000 other types of cultures, including blacks, that were assisting the Klan in various areas of moving out and doing things in the nation. The Klan had a lot of power in the 1900s, and even of course, that movement was growing pretty broad. So there is an article I do have that pretty much goes in depth in some areas about the Klan working with certain black organizations at certain times for certain things. So
from your perspective, why do you think that was?
Well, it goes with anything else. Anytime you are establishing power, or you're coming up as a secret society and it's growing because of maybe what was happening with Jim Crow laws and as well as the land. And also there's even other things that can go, the esoteric information, and of course some of the societies. The Klan is a secret society. So a lot of things they're practicing, they fall under the guise of Masons in the whole nine. So you have Black Masons, you got white Masons. So there's no reason in certain levels where they may not work together, even though on the surface it may appear as they're not, for various things. So I could see why Garvey may have met with him, depending on what he was trying to do. I comprehend that. I understand. I'm not giving him, I'm not saying that it was malevolent, but it probably was like, hey, if you want to move down here and you got these chapters down here, you're going to have to kick something back. Or, we're gonna tax you heavy. You might even take what you got. That was happening as well. So I just wanted to point that out. Can't remember the name of the article, but it does state that, and it lays gives examples to where there were certain blacks that were working in collusion with the Klan in certain things, on certain things. So, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to go back to the issue of the foreign nations, right? And if you read the treaties, these nations they could choose who they wanted to employ. A lot of them did choose to employ Moors, right? And they also chose to employ indigenous people, right? So this has a lot to do with the control of import export. Now we want to talk about Garvey. Garvey is trying to create an import export business, right? But he's doing it with somebody who is probably uh, not the greatest of your, not one of the greatest choices he can make. Now, that's what I'm saying. I don't really know too much about, I haven't really delved into a lot of the stuff that about Garvey. I just know enough about the extra territorial things that are going on at that time that Garvey is on the scene. However, I could see how somebody such as a eugenicist would like to use Garvey in that import export business, because I don't know if you're trying to poison us on both sides. Because we got to remember that the Shriefen Empire is controlling most of Western Europe and Western Africa at the time. Right?
Say that one more time. Like the part about why you think that Garvey would.
I can see how Plecker would use somebody like Garvey. I don't know if Garvey was fully aware of what this guy was doing. It's a possibility that he was, but it's a possibility that he wasn't. But I can see why Plecker would have a stake in it, because now, if he's a eugenist and on all that, but he's head of the vital statistics. Now, he's the head of vital statistics of what territory? Because it surely is not the whole state of Virginia.
So, like the vital statistics area didn't come to like a little bit later. So, like I said, Plecker passed in 47.
Yes.
I think the vital statistics issue started in 43. But Garvey when was he jailed and extradited, or not extradited, but banished?
1925.
Okay, so whatever, I would say, like from my perspective, whatever was going on the white supremacist side, I'll say that they were more than likely well aware of what they were doing. Garvey, on the other hand, I can't say. No, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think that he knew what he was doing, and maybe it didn't pan out the way that he wanted it to pan out. But I think he was well aware of what he was doing, and I say that only because when we talk about, actually, we didn't get into him that much. The Reverend Easton. Him and Garvey started out as friends. In fact, they became pretty close friends. It was in a short time span, I think 2 to 3 years, but they eventually had a falling out near the last year or whatever. And Eason's viewpoint was that Garvey was shady and he was doing things that defrauding people. Garvey's side of the story was that Easton wrote some bad checks and he didn't make good on it. So with the Eastern side of the story, it matches up with what other people were saying, that Garvey was defrauding them. So that's why I tend to not believe Garvey.
So there's overwhelming evidence. Again, Suraj is basically giving you the benefit of the doubt, you know, which we have to do because we weren't there. So, and there's some things to say, you know, some things there could have been some false accusations.
Could
But when you look at the overwhelming amount of the information in the newspapers, which were run by us. So that's another thing I noticed when I was doing the research.
Yeah, that's right.
Is a lot of these newspapers were our newspapers. So, and they was 1923. They was giving it to Garvey, man. He was getting hammered. So by us, from our communities, not from what you would call whites. They had some things to say too, but it was normally us that was going against them hard. So I'll turn it over to you. I'm gonna pull up a couple pictures while you speak.
I got one other question though. Why do you think that we cling, or Aboriginal people cling to that title of Black so hard? And I don't care if it's here in the Americas, if it's in some other countries. In most other countries, they don't really do it. They kind of refer to themselves, if they're from France and they're of color, they say that I'm French,
Which is correct.
you know, or you know, I'm from Spain. But mainly here, why do you think that people of color here or Aboriginal people here cling to the title of Black? And it really refers, if you really want to break that term down in Ballantyne's Law Dictionary or in Black's Law Dictionary, it's death. So why do people cling to that?
Is that a question for me or Suraj?
Both.
Okay, go ahead, brother Suraj.
Well, one, it's not a word that we ever use here. There is no word for Black in our language, the Maghreb language or the Moorish Latin. Okay, that was a German word, and so the Germans are foreigners.
Hi, Jim.
Yeah, so these people are foreign. They look like us, but they're foreigners, right? And so this was a derogatory term to diminish who you are, right? And once you start accepting that term or that language, right, then you're under their jurisdiction, you're under their control. So it was about getting control over that individual. And then if you keep allowing people to do that, after about 10 years, it becomes genetic. And you'll defend it, even when it's wrong. I think that's why we're doing it.
I believe it was basically a part of the plan, because when titles of chattel are placed on you, and a lot of the secret societies knew it. That's why a lot of them still push it on you. And they know that basically that puts you in a jurisdiction where you're considered to be chattel. And then your estates can be, you vacate your estates, abandon your estates, and then it can be taken. Just like in a will, if I leave something to my son and he has my last name, and then he changes his name and then comes back later on and try and gets what I left him, he really can't get it. He's showing up to somebody else. This was left to this person, and you coming back with another name. Who are you? I don't see your name anywhere in this will or the trust or deed or whatever it is. So it was a plan to basically steal these states of the autochthonous Americans, the Moors here, and others here that were in the Americas, because the Americas are it's the old world. It's the original old world. So when you deal with this scheme and plan, people talk about the resources and minerals of other nations, right? Like Africa has a lot of resources and minerals, right? But when you look at food, okay, you know, you can eat that gold. That is the science. You can melt it down and do all that with it. But when it comes down to it, the state of Kansas alone can feed the whole world off of corn. So when we get into what's here in the Americas, and Florida has number one fresh water in the world, freshest water systems in the world, freshest water streams in the world is in Florida. The most fertile soil is in the Americas, hands down. That's in another video we do presentation called The Fertile Crescent. Big shout out to Dr. Nargo Larco, who put it out. European, what you call European, whatever, white man. Out of Florida, big ups to him for putting the information out. We've been knowing it for years. He put it out there So America really is, you wonder why everybody wants to come here. And then once again, just solely and just sanguinis is only enforced the Americans. What is it about the Americans? Why is it that when an African comes here from Nigeria, we try and call him black? He doesn't do that. He says, no, I'm Nigerian, but we want to make him black. So he understands that, wait a minute, you're trying to denationalize. That's not who I am. They know, they understand that. Matter of fact, they're classified as white when they come here.
Right.
W-H-I-T-E, not W-H-I-G-T. Two different meanings. W-H-I-G-T, put it up on your phone. That means unfortunate or a ghost. Something deemed as an evil spirit. W-I-G-H-T. They used to say in the South, the white people. Y'all think that was a step? They think that was an accent. Oh, the hell, they white. Okay.
I heard it.
And W-H-I-G.
Didn't
Two different meanings, two different words.
What was his name? Dick Gregory say something about that one time. He said there was only, how do you have it? He said he thought that there was only two types of white people. There was white people, and then there was white people.
I remember something like that. Yeah, yes. Go ahead, Felton.
So really interesting. Okay, so the other thing is, like I said, we got to understand that we were invaded in a sense, right? Because if you go back in time and keep looking at all these treaties have always been about keeping foreigners out. But we was being bombarded constantly over and over and over again by other nations trying to get over here. Why are they getting over here? It's like you said, it's about land and labor. It's about soil, about the products here. When you think about the scriptures, it talks about in Genesis chapter 2, I think that's 10 through 13. It's going to talk about the land of Havilah, right, or the river. I found there was a person by the name of Havilah, right? But when you're talking about Havilah, right, and he said it was gold there, it was a good land for gold. But where's Havilah? Up the road here, in between Arizona, Nevada, and California.
Goddamn, like the word javelina.
That's where it's at. So the land was good for gold. Now think about what George Washington said. He said that we don't have any mines on our lands. Oh, wait a minute. So you don't have any gold, but the United States took on the debt of Great Britain and several other countries, right, who were in debt to the Sultan for over 18 million livres of gold and silver with interest behind it. Okay. So you telling me that this is not a commerce war? This whole thing is a commerce war. So I'm going to say that Marcus Garvey is a product of that commerce war. What side he was totally on, I don't know, because I know that at one point he stopped.
He was arrested.
Yeah, he was arrested. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Come on, brother. He was arrested because he was defrauding. He was not only defrauding but hardworking people, but he started defrauding politicians. There's a letter between. So you saw the video with the letter from him to A. Philip Randolph. They sent A. Philip Randolph a cut off hand in the mail, the Garveyites, and told him if he didn't pay, this was going to happen to you. A. Philip Randolph in the NAACP. So he was not only defrauding regular people, but he had started defrauding people that initially invested in him. He was even getting in.
So basically,
real quick, also, let me just show the picture real quick about George Washington and the city affairs and the whole nine. George Washington was a trader. He was one of us. He was taught by Prince Whipple, who was a Moor. And you can pull up the famous picture of the brother behind him with the turban on, just like the brother's wearing here with the feather. That's Prince Whipple the Moor. That was George Washington's teacher. And he has his back to him. It's a painting because he's turned his back on the Moors. And then he talked about removing all the turbans and fezzes from the Americans. Got that letter too. Remember that? Now, this again to you niggas out there to keep talking that smack about these Moors is the one, these honest, dirty Moors. George Washington wanted to remove everything about the Moorish culture from the Americas. We got the goddamn letter. So how you calling them traitors when George is the one that wanted to get rid of it? He was a traitor. And who was he dealing with? The Indian traders. So, real quick, this is my passion, man. I just don't like, we got to get rid of the lies. So, here we go. I mean, the misinformation. Maybe you brothers don't know. I love you brothers for the work y'all did because y'all doing good work. For some things, you guys are not doing good work in some areas. So, can you see this picture here, Brother Sam? Yeah. Now, this is in the Americas. This is Grenada. This is Grenada here, right out here. This is almost in the territory where we are in Texas. This is another map over here where Marrakesh, the boundaries of Marrakesh, which is Mecklenburg as well, right?
Philadelphia.
And if you can zoom in or blow it up, you'll see the city of Fez, F-E-S, which is, this shows in Pennsylvania. But there was also another location in New York. And in Pennsylvania, we talk about Philly. We talk about all the Moors that was running Philly and the whole thing. That's what the other mandate that Drew Ali basically supposedly signed. It was supposed to be someplace in Philly. One is in Cuba, and of course, one is in Chicago, which they'll never show you the one in Chicago, stating that the Moors basically own, are the landlords of the territory from Alaska to Argentina and beyond. And then from the halls of Montezuma, the shores of Tripoli, the songs that the Marines sing, which are the Maureen's. That was the first. That's why, if y'all really want to get down with what it's supposed to be, when you see some of these politicians, they only deal with certain people. Their security is the Marines, and then the sheriffs, which is the Sharifs, going back to Sharifian Empire. And where the word chief comes out of, you keep out there, be dogging the Moors, and y'all calling y'all chiefs. That's the Moorish title from Sharifian.
Yes, it is.
So I'll show another picture. Go ahead, brothers, take it over.
Yeah. Well, again, with the information, what we can say misinformation. The thing is that being that we had so many foreigners that were on the land, okay, so we had the Indian traders, right, and they got a whole list of these people by their names and stuff like that, and certain agents. Now, the question would be is that they said one of the things that was particularly happening was that you had the foreigners would come in, they would marry one of the daughters of the chiefs from one of the tribes, right? The indigenous tribes, right? And then next thing you know, they have an alliance with one another. Okay, now even though that alliance was not lawful, but they done it anyway. Okay, so now we have a mix of different people, because they would even call that child out of that union mixed race, or a muskie, if you will. They call them a muskies, right? They were mixed race, not no WIGHT man or WIGHT woman. We're talking about people that look just like you and me. That they was calling these people mixed, okay? Because why? They know that their blood and their genetics are from a different land. But once you integrate with those people, right, what you're doing is you're giving that child access to the estate now. So they could own the estate, those children will own the estate. So the question now is that we have two different bloodlines running in one individual, and now it's a question of loyalty. Who you gonna be loyal to? Your mom, your daddy, this side of the family, that side of the family? So when we were talking about all these newspapers and stuff that these people are running, brother, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to tell who was who. But I tell you one thing I do know is that they lying about the territory. Last thing, 1956, 1957, the relinquishment of jurisdiction in Morocco. The United States could no longer use extraterritorial jurisdiction, which means they had to go right back to their 6 square miles on the coast.
Go ahead, brother.
I don't even know what I was going to say, man.
So I can show some. It comes back to you. I'm going to wrap it up. If you have something, just jump in, brother. But I just want to refer you again to an article that is out of the Standard Union, Brooklyn, New York. How much time we got, brother, over there? 3 minutes, okay. March 29th, 1927, to where James E. Amos, who was did security for President Roosevelt, also did security for Marcus Garvey. And there were some other people around. How the fuck did that happen? So there was some powerful people around that he was being surrounded with as well. The famous picture again of Drew Ali. Can you see that, brother? In Mexico, supposedly with his sombrero on. How Drew Ali was moving around the country. Get into Drew Ali and Garvey in the series as well. I do want to pull up a few more photos for you in these 3 minutes here. We get into Osage women. There's a movie that's called The Killing of the Flowered Moon. If you haven't seen that, it's long, but it's good. But these are the some original pictures of some Osage at the time, even though you see different images of a modern day Mongolian looking type of Indian or indigenous or Nietzsche, as they would say. It's the name of the movie Killing of the Flower Moon is really it was called The Origins of the FBI, which is at the time was before that it was the Bureau of Investigation. But it's a good film and it shows you who was doing what to who. So get ready for that. I'm surprised they told the truth. Can you see that one, brother? This is Mary Todd Lincoln. This is an original picture of Mary Todd Lincoln. You want to zoom this up and get in closer. You can see just how much they lied to you. Of course, everybody knows about Abraham Lincoln, Abraham Khalil Kulani, who was a politician at best. Sometimes he switched sides. Sometimes he did best for his own interest. And then other times, he was the one who allowed the railroads to go out west, by the way. He made it real the railroad companies to go into our territory. So Lincoln, that's the reason why they have a statue of him in D.C. Y'all want to think that Lincoln was such a great president, but he did a lot of things against, a lot of illegal things against the Confederacy, which was called the Iroquois Algonquin Moroccan Confederacy. That was us. We can also get into General Lee and another one. We can pull up some associates of General Lee. I just wanted to show you some other images to think about. We'll get into some of these images. You see the dress she has on. Supposedly she's supposed to be the slave, and this is supposed to be the master's child. But just look at what she's wearing. We get into that as well. Those images in the next series. So let me try and grab a few more before we conclude here. I'll leave you with that to think about. It's when we get into slavery as well and who was doing what, who was what. But once again, thank you for tuning in. This is part 2. Once again, you leave your information as well, your email address for questions, and then you can reach me at solidmindproductions@gmail.com.
You can reach me at Life Productions or the Life Foundation, LYFE, and then Foundation 0212 at gmail.com or Life Productions 0212 at gmail.
Okay, you can reach me at SurajAmirBey at yahoo.com.
More to come. Peace.